For many decades, the Golden Gate Strait was known as the Water of Death, a place where the Pacific's fury met the silence of a blinding fog. The air was thick with salt and mystery, a natural barrier that seemed to defy any attempt by mankind to conquer the vast and dangerous opening. Back in the 1920s, this was a massive, violent void. Only the bravest sailors dared to navigate these waters while the city looked on hopelessly. Nature had drawn a line in the sand, or rather, in the deep blue. Every expert of the era agreed that building here was simply impossible. The word impossible echoed through the halls of engineering. They said the winds were too high, the water too deep, and the currents much too strong. But beneath the shroud of doubt, a vision was forming. Yet a silhouette of orange steel began to challenge the gray horizon of Northern California's rugged coast. The locals claimed that nature itself did not want a bridge here. The strait was a graveyard of ships and a monument to environmental hostility. However, history was about to be rewritten by the most stubborn minds. This is the story of how they defied the curse of the Golden Gate. To understand the challenge, one must look beneath the surface. The floor of the strait is a chaotic landscape of deep trenches and razor-sharp reefs. The currents here move at a staggering 60 miles per hour. Millions of gallons of water rush in and out of the bay every single day. Added to the water's fury was the ghost of earthquakes. The San Andreas Fault sits right next door, a constant threat of violent and unpredictable destruction. Every bridge theory of the time crumbled when applied to this location. Building here wasn't just a technical challenge, many called it a suicide mission. The press called it the bridge that couldn't be built. They warned of tax money being thrown into the sea and lives being wasted for nothing. But amidst the chorus of no, one man stood firm. Joseph Strauss, a diminutive but incredibly iron-willed engineer, believed he could tame the wild strait. Strauss was not just a builder, he was a dreamer who refused to see boundaries. He spent years lobbying, planning, and fighting for this singular vision. In January 1933, the war against the Pacific finally began. The silence of the cliffs was broken by the sound of heavy industrial machinery. The first task was the most daunting of all, anchoring the bridge to a seabed that didn't want to hold anything, especially in the south. The South Pier had to be built 1,100 feet out into the open ocean. It was an engineering nightmare that had never been attempted before. Down below, in the cold and lightless depths, the real battle was fought. And this was where the foundations of a miracle were painstakingly laid down. Divers descended into the darkness wearing heavy copper suits. They could only work for minutes at a time during the brief moments of slack tide. Their job was to blast the hard rock of the seafloor. They planted dynamite by hand, guided only by touch in the freezing, murky currents. The explosions sent shock waves through the bay. It was a violent, primitive way to carve a foothold into the earth beneath the crushing weight of ocean. A massive concrete fender was built to protect the pier. It had to withstand the impact of ships and the relentless pounding of the Pacific's storms. Disaster was always inches away. In the thick fog, ships often strayed from their lanes, nearly colliding with the fragile structures and the working men. Men worked in conditions that would be illegal today. They fought the wind, the salt, and the constant fear of being swept into the abyss. Inch by inch, the pier emerged like a gray fortress from the waves. It was a triumph of will over the liquid chaos of the strait. While the foundations were set, the steel was being forged. Thousands of tons of high-grade metal were being prepared to span the great opening. Every rivet was a heartbeat of progress. The bridge was not just being built, it was being stitched together with fire and iron and blood. The towers began to climb toward the heavens. They were Art Deco masterpieces, designed to be as beautiful as they were strong and resilient. At 746 feet, they were the tallest structures west of New York. The view from the top was both breathtaking and terrifying. There are over 1 million rivets in each tower. Each one represents a moment of precision and physical endurance by the bridge's legendary ironworkers. For a long time, the towers stood alone, in two isolated giants waiting for the connection that would finally bridge the gap between two different worlds. The sheer scale of the project was becoming clear to the world. Joseph Strauss's impossible dream was finally taking a physical and undeniable shape. Next came the most complex part, the spinning of the main cables. This was a dance of steel that would require unprecedented precision and safety. A wheel traveled back and forth, carrying thin wires across the strait. It moved day and night, weaving the strongest support system ever conceived. The main cables are not solid bars. They are made of 27,572 individual wires bundled into a single massive rope. The cable spinners worked on catwalks suspended in midair. With only a thin wire between them and the ocean, balance was their only friend. These wires were squeezed together by hydraulic jacks with incredible force. The result was a cable 3 feet thick, capable of holding millions of pounds. At the cables formed a perfect catenary curve, a mathematical grace that distributed the weight of the entire bridge across the two massive steel towers. But why is the bridge orange? It wasn't the original plan. The Navy wanted black and yellow stripes like a giant, ugly hazard sign. The consulting architect, Irving Morrow, saw the red primer on the steel and realized it was perfect. He fought for the color we see today. International orange was chosen for visibility. It allows the bridge to literally glow through the thickest fog, guiding ships safely through the narrow strait. It also complements the surrounding hills and the blue of the water. It turned a feat of engineering into one of the world's greatest landmarks. As the roadbed began to take shape, the bridge finally looked like a path. It was a bridge of light hanging over a sea of darkness. But behind this beauty lay a constant, hovering danger. Working at these heights, and a single slip meant a fall from which no one could survive. In those days, construction death was common. The rule of thumb was 1 death for every $1 million spent. This bridge cost $35 million. Strauss refused to accept those odds. He invested $130,000 into a revolutionary safety device, a massive circus-style net. The net extended 10 feet wider than the bridge and was the first of its kind. It was a safety revolution that changed construction forever. 19 men fell into that net during construction. They called themselves the Halfway to Hell Club, and they owed their lives to Strauss's foresight. The workers were heroes of their time. They braved the freezing winds and the terrifying heights to build something that many thought was impossible. Every man on the job knew the risks. They shared a bond forged in the cold air of the strait, a brotherhood of steel and salt. The safety net was more than just a tool, and it was a promise that the men who built the bridge would also get to see it finished. Even as the bridge neared completion, nature tested it. Fierce storms pushed the structure to its limits, but the engineering held fast and true. In April 1937, the last piece was placed. The impossible bridge was finally a reality, a continuous path of orange steel across the water. Opening day was a celebration like no other. 200,000 people walked across the span, marveling at the view and the sheer height. For the first time in history, the people of San Francisco and Marin County were connected by something other than a slow, vulnerable ferry boat. The following day, the cars arrived. The bridge became a vital artery of the West, a symbol of progress and the American spirit of innovation. Joseph Strauss had lived to see his dream realized. He had proven the world wrong and given the city a monument that would last forever. As the sun set on opening day, and the bridge transformed into a ribbon of gold. It was the crowning jewel of the San Francisco skyline. Decades have passed, but the Golden Gate Bridge remains as striking and modern as the day it first opened to an astonished world. It has seen history unfold beneath its arches. Warships, ocean liners, and millions of lives have passed under the watchful eyes of its towers. It survived the great 1989 earthquake with barely a scratch. Its flexible design allowed it to dance with the Earth's violent movements. Constant maintenance is the secret to its longevity. A dedicated crew works every day to keep the rust away and the orange paint bright. From above, the bridge looks delicate, a thin thread of human ingenuity holding back the vast, untamed power of the Pacific Ocean's currents. It is often a ghost in the fog, a hidden giant that only reveals itself to those brave enough to cross its windy, sun-drenched span. The Golden Gate is more than steel and paint. It is a testament to the fact that no obstacle is too great for human determination. Nature still rages against it with salt and wind and tide. But the bridge stands firm, a fiery miracle that refuses to back down. Its beauty is timeless, a perfect marriage of form and function that has inspired artists and engineers for nearly a full century now. Every ship that enters the bay honors the bridge with a salute. It is the gatekeeper of the West, the welcome mat of America. It has become a symbol of hope and connection. In a world that often feels divided, it stands as a bridge between separate shores. As the world changes around it, the Golden Gate remains constant. It is a permanent fixture in an ever-shifting landscape of technology and time. We look back at the skeptics of 1920 and we realize how wrong they were. The impossible was only a lack of imagination. It connected a dream to reality, and it connected the past to the future. It is a miracle built of steel, sweat, and absolute courage. Joseph Strauss once said, "The bridge which could not be built is now a fact." And what a glorious orange fact it truly is. A fiery miracle in the fog, a testament to the human spirit, the Golden Gate Bridge stands eternal, a masterpiece that redefined our very world.